afternoon, everyone. I have a soft voice, so if you can't hear me, by all means, just wave out so I'll speak louder. My name is Vinikar, and I manage career services at INSEAD in Asia. I have the dubious distinction today of standing between you and your lunch, so I will try to be quick. Okay? I'm here to urge you all today, the future of our world, to dare to dream. Now, quite frankly, when I was the average age of you guys in the audience, I was about anything but daring to dream. Anything but thinking outside the box. I was pretty much following the straight and narrow path. Study really hard, get good grades, get into a good MBA school, and graduate with a steady job in a multinational bank. At the age of 23, I could see my career map, straightforward, right in front of me, and I was almost beginning to think of the watch I was going to get at the end of my 30 years when I retired from the bank. But then, circumstances changed, and life happened. My brand new husband, who was also a banker, was on a business trip when he met someone who offered him a job in a country that he knew nothing about. But it was also a job that added a 0 at the end of his salary figure. Now, because we were very young and had no responsibilities and were as materialistic and money-minded as they come, we packed our bags and landed up in Jakarta, Indonesia. So I went from being on a fast-track career path as a banker to being a trailing spouse. I had to adjust to the idea of being an expat wife. So then I pretty much took any opportunity I got with Asian companies, with multinationals in the many countries that we then lived in. Along the way, I worked with an American multinational that was in the field of specialty industrial chemicals, so as far as you can get from banking. But I enjoyed it, and I ended up being promoted to general manager. I was the youngest ever, first Asian, first female person in that role. So the company killed a lot of birds with that one stone. After that, of course, came the Asian crisis of the late 1990s, and I joined up with a group of former bankers, and we started a boutique advisory firm. We worked with a number of companies that were struggling to come out of that crisis, and we learned a lot, more from the failures of our clients than their successes. And I remember clearly the day when I had just finished a huge restructuring deal, and we were all sitting in the office looking at our bonus checks and feeling very happy with life. And I was thinking, I'm following the career path I want. Living the MBA dream again, this time as a consultant, not as a banker, but back on track. And I got a phone call from one of our erstwhile clients who said, look, I'm going to challenge you. We've been paying you big bucks as a consultant to tell us what to do. I've just listed my company. I want you to take over as MD and implement some of the advice you've been giving us. It was a very scary thought, I'd gotten used to being paid to tell other people what to do, and now I was being asked to walk the proverbial talk. But I took the challenge, and it actually worked out quite well. But that's how I ended up being the managing director of a property firm, a real estate developer. 5 years back, we moved to Singapore, and I decided that I'd had enough of switching careers and traveling around the world, and I just wanted to settle down and get some more balance in my life. At that time, quite by accident, I met a professor, a very wise gentleman, actually from NTU, who told me that I should use my varied career experience to teach business strategy to MBAs. So I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I did, and it worked out quite well, and I thought that I was back on track now as a true blue academic. But once again, circumstances changed, and to cut a long story short, I found myself basically giving career advice to young millennials. Now, anyone who has ever tried telling a Gen Y what to do knows it's hardly an enviable job, right? And what makes it even more difficult or more exciting in my case is the fact that I'm advising millennials who are living in a VUCA world. Does anyone know what VUCA is? It's a term coined by your generation. Any ideas? Okay. No? Well, V is for volatility, U is for uncertainty, C is for complexity, and A is for ambiguity. When they coin a term for something, you know it's here to stay, right? So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the brave new world that you guys are going to graduate into. If anything makes me feel good about my 40-plus status, this is it, right? Now, when I was graduating, I remember a popular interview question used to be, what do you see yourself doing 10 years from now? Anyone heard that question? Yeah. Well, it was relevant when I was graduating, but it isn't today. Today, if any of you think you know what you might be doing anything beyond 2 years, you're being overly optimistic, right? I mean, to put things in perspective, billions of dollars worth of valuation notwithstanding, Facebook did not even exist as a concept a decade ago, right? The fact that it does exist today, of course, is testimonial to the fact that some young people dared to think differently, dared to experiment, dared to dream. Today, you don't have a choice. Innovation and adaptability are not just a key to success, they are essential to survival. And I'm not talking about coming up with, the next Archimedes principle or, the next Facebook or internet or even post-it notes or any such inventions. I'm talking about innovation in every facet of your lives, in every small aspect. And one that I'm familiar with and which will be important to you as you embark on your future careers is the interview process. You can expect potential employers to ask you questions like, how many tennis balls do you think will fit into this room? Or how many disposable diapers do you think Singapore goes through in a year? Okay? Thankfully, they're not looking for a factual answer to that question. They are looking to see how creatively and innovatively you're able to approach coming up with an answer to an impossible question. And I think this next graphic says it all. If you're going to work at IKEA, you better know how to assemble a chair. This is something I say to everyone when I start a career advice session, whether I'm talking to a 20-plus undergraduate or a 50-plus C-suite executive. Don't just do something, stand there. It's very important to take some time to reflect on what you really want to do. What makes you happy? What motivates you? Is it about money, as it used to be for me, but isn't anymore? Is it about having a fancy title? Is it about having your name on the door to the corner office, or maybe your name in the newspapers? Is it about being your own boss? Or maybe making a difference in the life of one person or 1,000? Or as the previous speaker was saying, saving the planet? The faster you find out, the quicker you find out what really makes you happy, the easier your work life is going to be. Someone emailed this to me, and I think it speaks really well. You need to think about what you love to do, and then see what out of the things you love to do you're good at. And because I'm a finance major, I have to add, make sure you can find something that pays well. It has to be commercially viable, right? And now if you look at these overlapping categories of happy but poor, just a dream, rich but bored, which of these groups do you think are the people who end up having the most heart attacks and falling down dead in the middle of a work meeting? Absolutely, rich but bored. So don't go there, right? And you have to think about the lucky people who are in the little red triangle, who've managed to do what they really love and actually be good at it, not just in their own minds, but in the minds of the people who are around them, and most importantly, manage to find someone who will pay them to do it. Can you think of anyone who might fall in that little red triangle? Any ideas? Anyone at all that you can think of? Steve Jobs, absolutely. J.K. Rowling, another person, right? I mean, who certainly does something she's very good at. obviously loves it and most definitely gets paid rather well to do it. So you have to look and see if you can find that little red triangle for yourselves. And listen, if it takes a while to find out, where that red triangle is for you, that's all right. It can take time. The road to success can take a long time under construction. But the important thing is you have to try. You have to be willing to change your mind a few times as you go along in that journey. You have to be willing to fail a few times. You have to want to dream. Another thing I tell young people when they talk to me about their job aspirations is, it's not a race about who gets the first job. It should be a race about who gets the right job. And talking about right jobs, what do you think this acronym stands for? It's an actual job title of an MBA that I worked with who was very specific about what she wanted to do. Any guesses as to what this might be? CCS? Can you guess at any of the terms? No? Chief, you got one part of it. Anything else? Strategist, okay, that, chief something strategist, so we've got two. Creative, not quite. Any other ideas? No, it's not corporate. It's chief chocolate strategist. This is a real job title of a very highly educated and very smart young woman who decided that this is exactly what she wanted to do. She was willing to work long and hard. She built a live resume. She spoke. She networked with very specific people. As you can imagine, it would be very specific for a role like this. And she's now got the job of her dreams. I'd love to have a job like that. So you do have to be willing to dream. I can think of other examples. I knew a young man who joined up for an MBA after having worked for 10 years as a Roman Catholic priest. So he practiced for priesthood for 10 years, and then he joined up to do an MBA, and he came and told us that he was hoping to make a small career switch from priesthood into consulting. He made my team very nervous. But the funny part and the interesting part was he did actually manage to get a job with one of the leading consulting firms. And the reason for his success was very clear. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. He had a story that he believed in, and he was able to convince other people about it. And then, of course, there are the real dreamers, the true brave dreamers who have an idea. They're entrepreneurs, and they're willing to invest their future in actually working on that idea. But they're also willing to fail quite a few times before they can be successful once. So if you have an idea, if you have a talent, don't waste it. You talked about Steve Jobs earlier, Vivek. Can you imagine if Steve Jobs had not dropped out of college and gone and worked on his ideas in his dad's garage? Where would we have been today? He might have become an investment banker or something, but we wouldn't have had any of this. This gentleman might have been happy, but the rest of the family would not. So if you have an idea, if you have a talent, go for it. I'm not advising that you drop out of college and stop going to NTU, but, give your ideas a chance. Now, when you do dream and you do run after those dreams, it can take a while and it can get frustrating. So it's also important to remember that Lady Luck does play a role in any successful venture. And you also have to remember that life is not always fair. Fortune does not always favor the people who deserve it the most. So sometimes things don't go well. You have no choice but to take a step back, take a deep breath, adopt a yoga position, breathe deep and just say, Om, this too shall pass, right? So keep those smiles on your faces. Retain your sense of humor. Surround yourselves with friends and go back and tell your mom and dad you love them, because these are the people who'll stick by you when the venture capitalists turn away. I hope Idea's not listening, but anyway. Okay. Now, since we're having this discussion in Singapore, I'm going to touch upon the fact that, the often talked about discussion on how the average Singaporean is not creative, not innovative. I think that's a rubbish notion. We're living in a nation of people who took, in just a few decades of independence, after very harsh foreign rule, a small red dot, which had no natural resources to speak of, no military might, hardly any land, hardly any population, and put themselves firmly on the international map. Not easy to do. And sure, your forefathers, spent a lot of time on building the nation, on just stability, on the basics, but that is what was imperative then. They achieved so much with so little, so that today you guys have the luxury to dream. You have the opportunity to take the success that they built Singapore up to the next logical step, which is from success to significance. And that will only happen if you're going to dream big. So if the lesson of history is to look at what happened in the past and ask why, I hope you, or at least some of you in the audience, will be able to look bravely into the future and ask, why not? I'll leave you with my favorite quotation. Find a job you love and you will never work a day in your life. Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.